We give them services in terms of getting their withdrawals and deposits done and opening their accounts.
We are building digital identity for the underprivileged nations of the world. Our hope is to make it easy for people to be part of the digital economy.
This system is going to bring the underbanked and underserved population into the financial ecosystem.
People depend on me, especially pension holders. We have to give them a good service.
People have come accustomed to digital payment system. People are demanding more.
When we see that we have millions of people who have been issued IDs, it actually gives us a sense of satisfaction on one hand, but it also shows us that we have billions more to cover.
It feels rewarding to know that my work is impacting someone beyond me, but it also encourages me to do more.
We can take a round of applause. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. From digital identity systems to integrated payment systems, ladies and gentlemen, this next session is going to be about surfacing some of the leadership choices, the policy choices, and we are so grateful that we have Mr. Sanjay Jain, who is the DPI Director at the Gates Foundation, who has graciously extended his time to be with us today, and will be kicking off this particular session with some remarks to help us frame this conversation. Very soon thereafter, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be broadening the conversation and welcoming some of the leaders that you are seeing on screen. We have Her Excellency Veronica Nduva here with us. She is, of course, the Secretary General of the East African Community, and from her, we'll lead into some of the efforts in DPI that are emanating out of the East Africa community and the extent to which they are fueling regional integration, they are deepening trade, and of course, unlocking growth. We are going to be also making our way to West Africa, where we're going to be hearing from Mr. Premier Ouyo, who is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, and really getting into the conversation of what does it take to build trust and confidence in digital payment systems. And it is quite fitting that while we find ourselves here in South Africa on the eve of the G20 summit, that we take a moment to reflect backwards and hear from somebody who comes from the presidency in Brazil, and that is, of course, Madame Beatrice Vasconcelos. I had to make sure that I get my pronunciation right there. She is the Deputy Secretary for Digital Transformation in the presidency in Brazil. And so she too will be sharing some of her thoughts of the journey of DPI, not only in Brazil, in the broader region, but most importantly, what do we carry on from the G20 in Brazil back here and into South Africa? So it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal conversation. What's left for me to do at this particular moment is to ask you to join me in a very warm Cape Townian, South African round of applause as we welcome Sanjay onto the podium. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you, Nozipo. I want to first call out the critical moments because it shows why the work you all are doing is so important. The first 2 decades of the 21st century brought more progress for more people in more places than at any time in history. The number of kids dying before their 5th birthdays has fallen by half. The number of people living in extreme poverty has fallen by 2/3. Today, however, the resources to help continue that progress are being abruptly cut back, with countries slashing more than $30 billion in aid over the past year alone. In a future of more limited resources, we have 2 options. We can resign ourselves to slower progress, or as Nandan just pointed out, we can work smarter with the resources that we do have, harnessing new technologies to help countries do more with less. And that's where you all come in. Your work is creating exciting new possibilities to connect people affordably and at scale with the information, services, and resources they need to create better lives for themselves. With that, I want to introduce you to Misco. Misco is a smallholder farmer in the Oromia region of Ethiopia. As you know, many smallholder farmers, particularly women, have long been disconnected from information about things like the seed varieties that can withstand changing weather patterns, and from the markets that they need to sell their crops at a fair price. They're often forced to sell through middlemen who offer them below market price and pocket the rest. Fortunately, Ethiopia has been developing DPI that enables tools and services to support these farmers. Using Ethiopia's digital ID system, FIDA, Misco will soon be able to register as a farmer, geotag her land, and use AI-enabled tools to get the information in the language she speaks, tailored to the soil and weather patterns she experiences, so that she can boost her yields and grow a greater variety of more resilient crops. She can then see the fair market price for those crops and sell directly to buyers using Ethiopia's e-payments app, FIDA Pass, so that her work earns what it deserves. And that's just the beginning. In the coming years, we hope that if she gets pregnant, she'll be able to go to the clinic, connect to her patient record using her digital identity, and use AI-enabled antenatal sensors to see if she has an at-risk pregnancy. By the time her child is in school, she'll be able to pay his school fees digitally, and his teachers will have access to online curriculum that gives them a clear picture of what he's mastered, what he's struggling with, and what tools they can use to help him learn. As he grows, he will have a digital diploma that simplifies the process of applying to jobs or further schooling. He'll be able to set aside money in a digital savings account, so he has resources to invest in his future. And if he needs a loan, he'll have a financial record that allows him to borrow money at a fair price so he can pursue his goals. Multiply possibilities like these across an entire population, and you can see how DPI will be transformative for building human capital and spurring economic growth. But meeting this potential is not inevitable. In order for the countries represented in this room and beyond to reap the full benefits of DPI, these systems must be designed for the public good, led by nations themselves, and grounded in the trust of the people who use them. I'll take each of these in turn. First, as nations invest in digitalization, many partners have come forward offering to help countries build digital tools. But we have seen that in some cases, these tools aren't as effective as countries hope, either because they're designed to extract a significant profit, or because they're designed for a specific use case and don't integrate with other key digital services. So we should be clear about what actually defines DPI and makes it so powerful. We at the Gates Foundation are aligned with the World Bank's definition, which establishes DPI as foundational, reusable, and digital building blocks, such as digital payments, identity, and data sharing, designed for the public benefit. Second, we know that countries at the beginning of their digital journey, for them to create the kind of DPI that has taken others over a decade to build and refine can seem like a massive and complex undertaking, especially when donors come in offering digital aid in the form of many discrete digitalization projects. That's why the foundation and our partners have focused on developing tools and technical assistance that puts countries in control. We have invested in tools that combine the best ideas from DPI deployments across the world into open source platforms that allow countries to customize the technology to meet their own unique needs. MOSIP for identity systems and Mojaloop for payment systems. Countries have also had success working with private sector partners or creating their own versions of core digital services. Our goal is to help the world move, in the words of Prime Minister Modi, from a time of digital aid to digital empowerment. So we are encouraging donors to rally around platforms like the World Bank DPI Trust Fund or co-develop that offer coordinated support and put countries in the driver's seat as they develop their own DPI strategies. That brings me to the third and perhaps most essential attribute of DPI, that it is grounded in the trust of the people who use it. We've already heard about how vital it is that people trust these systems and have confidence that their personal data or hard-earned resources will be secure. Yesterday, when Madhukar asked people in this room how to design DPI, Trust, inclusion, and interoperability were at the top of that list. So establishing appropriate policies and regulations to make DPI safe, secure, and inclusive is just as important as building the tech platforms themselves. A great start has been made at the global level with the Universal DPI Safeguards Framework, which nations like Nigeria, South Africa, and Brazil have focused on putting into place. It's absolutely critical that countries get this right and invest in digital public infrastructure that is for the public good, nation-led, and grounded in the trust of their own people. The countries who do have this foundational infrastructure in place will have extraordinary possibilities at their fingertips to build the next generation tools and services that can transform societies, if, that is, they focus on developing them for the people who need them most. Just this morning, Co-Develop shared the results of a survey of everyday people in 6 African countries. One of the key findings centered on entrepreneurship. People said they would feel encouraged to start or grow a business if key elements of DPI were in place. 4 in 10 cited secure digital payments, and 1 in 3 cited digital identity. So the final point I will leave you with today is, we have seen time and again that new technologies almost always benefit the rich first, unless we intentionally focus on designing them to meet the needs of poor and marginalized communities. These days, people tend to talk a lot about how the challenges facing the world have never been greater. But the truth is, neither are the opportunities.
Thank you so very much for those remarks, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be building on some of these insights, some design imperatives that have been highlighted. DPI that is a public good, that is nation-led, and of course is built on the foundations of trust. An underlying view on a transition from digital aid to digital empowerment. What does this look like in practice? And so I'm going to invite our panelists to please kindly join me up on stage. Once again, let's give a warm round of applause for Her Excellency Veronica Nduva. Let me welcome Beatrice as well as Premier. Please join us. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. We have limited time, but I do think that there are some areas that we can double click on as we build on some of the insights that Sanjay has shared. Madam Secretary General, let me maybe start off with you. One of the things that Sanjay says is that he says that DPI is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that allows us to do more with less. Take us to the East African community, and in particular, what's coming out of the partner states. And what I'm more interested in is not so much what they're doing individually within their national boundaries, but what is being elevated to the regional level that is driving regional integration, potentially deepening trade opportunities, and even driving growth.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nosy, and a great presentation from Sanjay. And I particularly take away opportunities have never been more than they are today. So the East African community is certainly taking advantage of this, and I will sum it this way. With everything that each of our partner states is doing, what we are doing as a region is to consolidate, to collaborate, and to cooperate.
Sure.
Because we know for you to advance in DPI, there has to be a cross-border sense of doing things together. We have to share. We have to make sure that we are talking to each other. And allow me to just, I've seen so many examples of the payments. The M-Pesa is something that we are very proud of back in East Africa. But allow me to just share two examples, and I'll base this on the fact that we exist as a community to promote trade, free movement of people, goods, and services. And one of the things that we are very proud of is the single customs territory. All our partner states can talk to each other, moving transport logistics, the customs declaration forms, and we are able, because of talking to that, we have a dashboard where we can track movement of goods, we can look at the driver identification, we can see where a truck is at any one time, and because of this investment, trade has moved from movement from border, let's say Rwanda, Burundi to Dar es Salaam, Mombasa, 21 days to 4 days. The second example I will give is East African Regional Payments Settlement System, where we are investing in making sure that our traders can exchange money without the money having to go to New York first. And because of this, we have now come up with a master plan.
Sure.
And the master plan is under implementation. And that basically requires resources and all that. So I guess to finalize is to say that we have managed to do a lot with less because of the certain conditions that we face that have been highlighted here, including the fragmented digital ecosystems, the challenges in harmonization of the policies, where we are now making progress with the East Africa Digital Framework strategy, transformation strategy. And so perhaps I'll say more, but I think I want to stop there for now, just to kick off things. Thank you.
I think it's a fantastic opening. You speak about consolidation, collaboration, and cooperation, and we're going to double click on that to get a good sense of practically what has that looked like and meant. But one of the things that stands out for me again is to go back to the earlier comment by Mr. Nilekani to say this is an example of deep conviction, because in order to achieve everything that you've spoken to at a regional level, there has to be political will as a foundational point off which some of these regional efforts are then built. Let me then take us to, let's go to Nigeria first. Premier, let me come to you. I want to look at the digital payments conversation with you, and in particular, look at AfriGo, which I understand is Nigeria's first domestic card. What's quite interesting has been the adoption by merchants. I think to date, the number is, the card has processed more than 70 billion naira, which is a staggering number. I want and would like to invite you to comment for us on what does it take to build trust and confidence amongst everyday people in order to really drive the adoption of a digital payment system.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here. I work for a company called Nigeria Interbank Settlement, and I think that company was the first company to build the first instant transfer, account-based, and that has been on for about 15 years. And rising from that, we study our own local environment to determine what the issues are. Digital payment is in competition with cash in Africa, and the main reason is because cash is instant. And if you are building a digital payment that is not instant, then you have an issue. So in building AfriGo, which is our domestic card scheme, it was a response to deal with the market need, especially in Nigeria. And what we have done is to put a card in the hands of our people that provide the first world-based instant settlement on POS. Every merchant in Nigeria today accepting AfriGo on the POS machine gets an instant value. I don't know of any card scheme that provides that today in the world. Having done that, we also ensure that the issue around dispute is completely eradicated, very minimal dispute issues, because that's another thing that you use to build trust. Another major factor was looking into the cost.
Sure.
A lower cost regime for the card, both for the merchant as well as the customers and for the banks. And another very important factor driving the adoption is the role of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as well as the federal government. AfriGo card has the support of the last president and the current president of Nigeria. And working with NIMSI, Nigeria Identity Management Company, we have built our identity rail on the payment rail of AfriGo. So the government payment schemes for the less privileged is going to go on that payment rail and the card. So with that, there's a whole lot. So if you pick up an AfriGo card today, then your NIN or your national identity picture can also be fixed on that card. So with that, there's a whole lot of adoption across the ecosystem. All the banks in Nigeria are currently issuing it, and we intend to do more by ensuring that there's transparency in the transaction processing and delivery. Thank you.
Premier, thank you very much. I think you've given us some really interesting ingredients that one needs to consider when we're trying to build trust and confidence. You've spoken about the idea of first engaging with the reality of the market where cash is still so dominant, but being able to supersede that by the value that is then given to the ordinary person, the absence or very minimal disputes that you're speaking about, the consideration of cost. But I think what's really exciting is the ability of now a digital ID system that is now being built on the back of that payment system. And it goes back, I think, to Sanjay's earlier comment of doing more with less and leveraging off those systems. So thank you very much for those opening remarks. Beatrice, let's go to Brazil and let's make the link between the chairmanship of the G20 by Brazil and now here in South Africa. I would imagine that there have been tons of meeting where there has been sharing of Brazil's DPI journey with South African counterparts and with the Global South more generally. I'd love to hear some of the key insights that are flowing in those conversations, but potentially if you can also give us a view on how is the Global South thinking about DPI that is really reflective of the needs of a more inclusive world.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So before talking about the G20, just to take a step back, when India brought G20, the DPI conversation to the G20, we in Brazil, we welcomed it very, very nicely and in a very exciting way, because actually our DPI journey had started way before the DPI conversation, and we thought that it was an interesting framing that India was bringing to the conversation that would help us first even strengthen and give common language to what we're doing.
Sure.
But also our journey really started more from a government perspective. Our digital government initiatives were very strong. So when India brought the DPI conversation to the table, it made us think more in terms of the economy, like the broader societal impact. So that was very useful. So we took a very pragmatic approach to the G20. And last year, we hosted the G20. We decided to continue the conversation on DPI. And we hosted a meeting in Brasilia with representatives from India and South Africa. We called it the Troika meetings. A lot of organizations here represented were supporting this. And it was a very good moment for us to reflect on what we're doing, to exchange with Indian partners and also South African. So actually right before that, we had sent 2 delegations to India, first with 3 people, then we decided to expand and also bring some of the implementers, and it was very helpful to start thinking more in terms of what we're doing, how we could improve. Now we're sending a delegation, a focus on education, and we think the opportunities are massive. Last week, we also launched an agreement with IIITB, an Indian institution, to have a center for DPI with DataPrev, our IT SOE. And regarding South Africa, I don't want to speak on behalf of them, so I asked them this morning what was happening and whether there was any exchange that was helpful. And what they said is that after the Troika meetings in Brasilia and some of the bilaterals that we organized, they actually were very excited about gov.br, and they said that they're forking gov.br to build gov.za. Also, the payments, the instant payments project, they say that it's being very inspired by PIX, and it's very exciting to us. I think we have a lot to learn and share, and whenever we bring all these countries to the room, it makes us reflect on what we're doing and what we can do better. And the fact that we sent a very large delegation to this event here, we have 6 representatives from the Brazilian government, and it's not just because Cape Town is beautiful, but but also because we think there's a lot to learn and share. So we're very excited. A lot is going on between these 3 countries, and we welcome more collaborations.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. And yes, of course, Cape Town is beautiful. It is a good reason to be here. But it's really interesting to hear you speak about the intentionality of sharing experiences, sharing insights, and strengthening the Global South's own and South-South cooperation in terms of really imagining a DPI that is truly inclusive, and long may that continue as well. I want to then maybe just go back as we go into another round of questions to come back to you, Secretary General, and bring the reality that in most
innovations and advancements in the digital. A lot of conversations in this space talk about not leaving the people behind and that we have to be people-centric. But I want to perhaps introduce also another ingredient, that not leaving the leaders behind. Because then the leadership are the ones who will be in conversations and who will be in the spaces where decisions need to be made. And I think that's one of the ways as a region we've been able to pull everyone together. Remember that the ESC leadership is led by a summit of heads of state where the presidents and then the ministers and the sectoral councils in different spaces, and we have dedicated sessions where these conversations happen. Yesterday, you saw a report that was presented here on the advancements on DPI within the ESC. That has been made possible by having every partner state around the table. When you talk about leaders, I want to give an point like, hey, you need to work with Somalia, you need to work with Burundi, you need to work with this, and we help maybe build the concepts or the concept notes. So with the help of the various partners, we have the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, the Gates Foundation. All these are people who are in this space with us in digital transformation training, digital literacy, elevating it, ensuring that right now we are doing policy harmonization. And that's a very critical step to ensuring that we move together as a region. So I think to sum it up, I would say when I meant about collaboration, I meant with collaboration with the stakeholders, cooperation with everyone who is in the space, and just ensuring that we pool our resources, because that's I mean, it was said earlier that DPI is not deep pockets, but it does require resources, and we do not have those resources as a region, and therefore we benefit from that. So I think in a nutshell, that's what I would say. I'd say we are very confident. We've made great strides, and we see other regional economic communities coming to learn from us and see the strides we've made in this space. So thank you.
So what I love about that response is not only are you giving us some of the things that need to be true in order for DPI at a regional level to really become a connector, not a divider. So, for example, the literacy becoming an important point, the learning from best practice and using a regional blueprint so not everybody has to start from scratch. I love the idea of shortening the learning curve for others. But what I didn't expect, Secretary General, is this idea of being mindful that we don't leave leaders behind. Because I think the thinking is always that leaders are at the forefront. And I think it takes us back to some of the earlier comments we heard to say, part of what makes DPI so important is that it is a public rail for private innovation, and it is quite possible for private innovation to run ahead and leave some of the public leaders behind. So thank you for that unconventional reminder about something that we often forget. Because we're talking about regions, let me go back to Beatrice, and then I'll come to you, Premier. Beatrice, what I'm interested in is I've heard you commenting on some of the cross-pollination of lessons from a South-South cooperation perspective. Take us into your region in particular and potentially highlight for us any frameworks or initiatives that are really driving DPI in the region and that you think would be useful for other regions to hear about.
Yes, we are actually very excited about one initiative called the Digital Citizenship in Latin America. It started in the Red Realc, which is the ministerial committee and meetings for digital transformation in Latin America. So that's an initiative that is actually integrating digital ID across Latin America. It started more or less a year ago with Brazil and Uruguay. and we integrated gov.br with the equivalent in Uruguay, and now we have 40 services integrated. At first, the idea was to focus on business services for businesses, and that still is the focus. Now I think we have over 12 countries in the initiative, and 2 days ago we had a demo in one of the rooms. I think it was the certification for exporting erva mate, which is very famous in the south of Latin America. So we believe that that has a massive impact, and we can even think more about the impacts for the economy and the digital economy. So that's a very, very, very important one that we are excited about. There's another one actually with Portugal. We realized that there are many Brazilians trying to live in Portugal. I don't know if it's a good thing, but one of the key issues was that Brazilians couldn't prove that their documents were valid, and Portugal was taking too long to finish the process. So we are now integrating gov.br with Portugal so that the Portuguese government can verify the documents and make the process easier for Brazilians. So I think there's a very big potential to integrate those infrastructures across the globe, and obviously we would more than welcome more partnerships with the Global South. But I think that the possibilities are infinite.
I love that. The possibilities are absolutely infinite, and a really impressive list of initiatives. Some of them still emergent, but one would imagine that with momentum, they're going to accelerate and deepen over time.
774 local government areas, and some of these local government areas, so as people having access to banks is a problem. So, but there have been some strategic actions taken by the Central Bank of Nigeria. One was the creation of agency banking. So, agency banking allows people in rural communities to at least do banking through an agent and open an account. But one other fundamental action taken, which is the functional ID card to have an account in Nigeria. 3, then it's limitless. But the focus for the unbanked in rural areas and to enable them to trust the system is the NIN. And with NIN, we continue to suck in a lot of the unbanked, and using the point of sale terminals to open accounts, to transact, makes it a lot easier for them. And of course, the deepening of the USSD code across the country has also helped to push a lot of adoption. But like I said earlier, the Afrigo was a response to dealing with Nigerian peculiar issues. So one of the things we did on the Africo card is to ensure that the account numbers and biometric details are embedded on a QR code, and that they have bank accounts and then they are being utilized. And I think more and more of that until everybody gets sucked in.
Premier, that is probably a really fantastic expression of putting people at the center, at a level that is consequential and doesn't become another talk show. To hear from you is, what is one leadership choice that you think has to be made?
A zero data cost to promote. For me, that's very critical success factor. 2030 is just 4 years away from now. Thank you.
Thank you. With an openness to sharing data. Secretary General, thank you very much for that. Beatrice?
Yes, so I would think that
from the infrastructure and building on that value. I love the analogy that was used earlier, that your penthouse, unless you've got the foundation right. Now, as we close off, I'm going to do something that hopefully not a political paper. Premier, it's not a Beatrice, it's not an executive summary for the president. It is a billboard, the future of DPI. I'm going to start off with you, Premier. You look the most confident. The future of DPI?
Trust.
The future of DPI is trust. Let's give Premier a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we to invite you to turn your attention to the screen as we take a trip to the Lagos Business School Innovation Lab. It's a short video produced by the Gates Foundation, but I certainly think captures the spirit of the conversation we've just had. Please turn to the screen.
What do you do when you see people unable to save for the things they need, grow their businesses, and feed their families?
Most of the market women you see, they are hawkers on the streets of this market.
Decide to start work on the SOSU product and join the SIDFS product.
The lab exists to solve the problem of creating financial products that are...
We have over 10,000 customers currently in just this island alone.
Because in the face of every problem, there are people who